For many people, therapy feels harder before it begins making life genuinely better. That surprising reality catches countless people completely off guard during their very first session. Almost nobody warns you that healing can initially feel more painful than comforting. Understanding this process explains why so many people quit therapy far too early. Claire nearly walked away after her first emotionally exhausting appointment ended. She expected relief, reassurance, and answers, but instead felt emotionally exposed and overwhelmed. Her therapist calmly explained something many people never hear before beginning therapy. Healing often resembles reopening a wound that never truly healed in childhood. You cannot rebuild emotional strength without first facing what originally caused the pain. That discomfort isn't proof you're failing. It's often evidence that something is finally changing. This single idea completely changes how people should understand the therapeutic healing process. Once you understand it, therapy becomes less frightening and much easier to trust. Every therapy journey is different, and no two people heal in exactly the same way. Some people feel better quickly, while others struggle before meaningful progress finally appears. Claire spent years calling emotional numbness strength instead of recognizing quiet suffering underneath. She built invisible emotional walls so carefully that even she forgot they existed. Feeling nothing seemed safer than risking sadness, anger, fear, or deep vulnerability again. But emotional numbness slowly disconnects you from happiness, connection, purpose, and genuine fulfillment. One ordinary morning, Claire unexpectedly burst into tears over something seemingly insignificant. That tiny moment shattered years of carefully maintained emotional protection surrounding her life. Exhausted and frightened, Claire finally booked her first therapy appointment, hoping for immediate relief. Instead, painful memories surfaced almost immediately, leaving her emotionally drained after the session. She remained inside her parked car for 20 silent minutes before driving home. Her therapist explained that early emotional discomfort often comes before genuine psychological breakthroughs. Claire wasn't convinced because everything inside her suddenly felt much worse than before. She almost canceled her second appointment, believing therapy simply wasn't working for her anymore. Yet a quiet voice inside whispered, "Just give yourself one more chance." That decision became one of the most important choices she had ever made. Here's the psychological truth few people fully understand before beginning real emotional healing. Your brain builds defenses to protect you from pain it believes unbearable. Denial, avoidance, distraction, and emotional numbness often begin as survival strategies, not weaknesses. Therapy slowly lowers those defenses, allowing buried emotions to finally reach the surface. That experience feels frightening because your brain mistakes vulnerability for danger. Old emotional memories can activate the same survival systems that once protected you. Even though today's environment is safe, your body may still react defensively. Anxiety, sadness, confusion, and anger can suddenly appear all at once. That emotional flood doesn't always mean you're getting worse. Sometimes you're finally processing. Feelings buried for years rarely disappear. They patiently wait for a safe release. Therapy creates that safe space where those emotions can finally be experienced differently. Research suggests emotional memories often change only after they're safely revisited and processed. Your emotional brain reacts faster than your logical mind can interpret events. Only after emotions settle down does clearer thinking gradually return. That's why insight alone rarely creates deep, lasting psychological change. Real healing requires both understanding your pain and allowing yourself to genuinely experience it. This explains why journaling sometimes feels heavier before becoming deeply clarifying. It's also why tears during therapy can represent progress instead of failure. Growth often requires temporary discomfort, just as physical training challenges growing muscles. Comfort preserves familiar patterns, while healthy discomfort creates room for lasting transformation. Some therapists describe this stage as emotional destabilization before healthier coping patterns emerge. It may feel like you're falling apart while your mind is actually reorganizing itself. Everything changes once you understand that discomfort doesn't automatically mean something is wrong. Sometimes it's the first clear sign that genuine healing has finally begun. Claire continued attending therapy despite feeling emotionally worse for several difficult weeks. Her therapist gently reminded her that this stage was temporary, not permanent. Slowly, the constant emotional pressure inside her began losing its overwhelming intensity. She slept through the night for the first time in nearly 2 years. Quiet moments of peace started appearing between the difficult therapy sessions. Claire realized she was no longer avoiding painful emotions whenever they appeared. Instead, she was learning how to experience them without immediately running away. That felt terrifying, yet strangely freeing at the same time. She gradually recognized childhood patterns repeating throughout many of her adult relationships. Her therapist helped connect those patterns to emotional needs that once went unmet. Suddenly, years of confusing reactions finally began making complete psychological sense. Understanding didn't erase the pain overnight, but it removed much of the confusion. Making sense of suffering is often the first meaningful step towards lasting recovery. Claire slowly stopped repeating the protective behaviors that once controlled her relationships. Honest conversations gradually replaced silence, avoidance, and constant emotional self-protection. Her marriage improved because she finally expressed feelings instead of hiding them. Progress wasn't perfect, and some weeks still felt surprisingly difficult. Her therapist reminded her that healing rarely follows a perfectly straight path. Setbacks didn't erase progress, they simply revealed deeper layers ready for healing. Every difficult layer eventually brought greater clarity, resilience, and emotional freedom. Claire stopped judging herself whenever painful emotions unexpectedly returned. She slowly learned to trust the process instead of fearing every setback. That single change became the foundation for everything that happened afterward. The next realization surprised even researchers who have studied emotional healing for decades. Claire's experience wasn't unusual. Countless people quietly travel the same difficult path. Those who quit early rarely discover what waits beyond temporary emotional discomfort. Those who continue often find something they never expected to experience. Not perfection, but a deep sense of lasting inner peace and emotional freedom. That peace doesn't erase painful memories. It changes your relationship with them forever. Claire still feels sadness sometimes, but sadness no longer controls her decisions. She still experiences anxiety occasionally, but it no longer defines who she is. That's what genuine psychological healing often looks like in everyday life. It isn't becoming emotionless, it's learning to respond instead of simply reacting. 6 months after beginning therapy, Claire barely recognized the person she once was. She hadn't become someone new, she had rediscovered the person hidden underneath fear. Therapy didn't create a different Claire, it removed what blocked her authentic self. Deep psychological healing clears away protective barriers instead of changing your personality. If therapy currently feels harder, don't immediately assume something has gone wrong. For many people, temporary discomfort can be part of meaningful emotional growth. Of course, every therapy journey is different, and experiences naturally vary between individuals. If something doesn't feel right, discussing it openly with your therapist is important. Don't mistake temporary struggle for permanent failure, because they often feel remarkably similar. The hardest stage of healing is often where the greatest transformation quietly begins. Claire almost stopped during that stage, and today she's deeply grateful she continued. Healing begins when you stop running from pain and start understanding it compassionately. The pain you feel today doesn't automatically mean you're permanently broken or hopeless. It may simply mean your mind has finally found a safe place to heal. If this perspective helped you, please subscribe, share your thoughts, and help someone else discover hope.